Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. You know, we couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to take a moment to say thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, including our newest sponsor, Booster Digital Displays. Revolutionize your game day experience with Booster Digital Displays. We also want to thank Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. And Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is a good friend, Dr. Lisa Starks. Lisa is the athletic director at Booker T. Washington High School in Miami. She's also very active in the state. She's served on the Athletic Director Advisory Committee, and she's currently a member of our FIAAA Board of Directors. Dr. Starks, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well,
I'm very excited to be here. I've been waiting for this moment for a while now, so
we've been looking forward to this one for a while. We want to find out what's going on down in Miami. Well, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and how your love of sports led to your current position at Booker T.
Okay, well, I'm from Miami, Florida. I graduated from American Senior High School. From there, I went to a community college in Sanford, Florida, Seminole Community College at the time, but now it's Seminole College. From there, I came back home to Florida Memorial University, where I received my bachelor's degree in physical education with a minor in biology. From there, Southeastern University, and received my master's degree. I received my bachelor's degree in physical education with a minor in biology. From there, I went to Nova Southeastern University, and I majored in science education because science is my first love. I do love science. From there, I received my doctorate degree in higher education and organizational leadership. And that is it for me. Oh, I have one daughter. I have a daughter. She's 33. And she's a professor in South Korea.
Oh, well, I did not know that about you.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about, coming back to your hometown. And again, for our listeners, Nova Southeastern's, north of Miami. But how did you transition from a graduate student to, teaching and coaching, and how did that lead to your position as an athletic director?
Well, in high school, I've always loved sports. I played volleyball, basketball, ran track. So those were my sports throughout the whole time that I was at American High. From there, I got a scholarship for basketball. Ran a little track when I transferred to Florida Memorial. So I've always had a passion for sports. And when I say that science was my first love, I wanted to be a physical therapist first, and I wanted to own my own sports rehabilitation center. So, that kind of went another direction for me once I started coaching. And I started coaching at American Senior High School first. And from there, I was at Hialeah Gardens Hialeah High School as the head coach. And I got my passion through just working with the kids, really enjoying myself, just seeing the development of what I could do as a coach. And then from there, as I was working on I was at an elementary school, and as I was working on my doctorate, I received a phone call that I wanted to go to high school. I always wanted to go to high school. So I received a phone call that Booker T. Washington was looking for a biology teacher. So I said, oh, that's great. So I said, that's my chance to get in high school, So they was also looking for a coach. So that was a good transition for me But come to find out, the biology teacher they had already hired, and they needed a female phys ed teacher. So I was just fortunate to get that position, get in, and I became the head coach here at Booker T. Washington. And within maybe two or 3 years after that, I became the assistant athletic director. And then I transitioned from the assistant athletic director in 1 year to the athletic director. And here I am, 18, 19 years later. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while.
Well, I know you and I first crossed paths, I'm going to say probably 15, 16 years ago when we were
Yeah.
both on the AD advisory committee.
Mhm.
Always enjoyed what you brought to those meetings. Again, for our listeners, Booker T. Washington, very big public high school in Miami, and
Mhm.
very, very successful athletic program. So, Lisa, talk a little bit about coming in and taking on that leadership role. You were coaching there, but then talk about that transition to becoming an AD. How was that?
Well, the transition was, it was a little hard at first because, when you're a coach, your passion is coaching. So but you also want to elevate what you already have in yourself and challenge yourself a little bit more. And for me, I wanted to look a little bit more. I wanted to see what I can do as an athletic director. But as I became transitioning into becoming an athletic director, I found that it wasn't as easy as everybody would think. You have to look at the overall. I can't really look at basketball anymore because I was a coach. I can't look at track anymore because I was a coach. I have to look at the overall athletic program and see how we can develop and move forward as a program. So it was a little challenging at first financially because you're finding out that some sports don't generate any money, and then you find out that some sports generate a lot of money, and then some sports just stay stagnant. They don't lose money or earn money. They just don't. So it was a learning experience, but it was a challenge for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I said, I love what I'm doing, and I want to stay. I want to continue to do it, but I wanted to elevate the program from where it was to another level.
Well, we're going to talk about some of those things in a minute, but before we do that, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and particularly mentoring. And so I'm curious, who were some of your mentors growing up? Family members, maybe coaches or teachers, or maybe even people that you've worked with.
Oh, you have to always say your parents, because I have to say my mother, being raised in a single parent home, she taught me a lot about being strong as an individual, as a woman, and just making sure that, I make the right decisions. Every decision that I make is not going to be the best decision, but I have to stand by any decisions that I make. My mother was Mary Stark. She was very inspirational to me. It's like my biggest fan. She's also a Booker T. Washington alum. So that was, she was proud about that. My fourth grade teacher, Barbara Moss, she taught me a lot as well. And I have to go back to her because she kind of taught me a lot of things growing up. And I continue to speak with her to this day. Sheila Rush, she was my basketball coach. I continue to speak with her to this day. And Gloria Evans, she gave me my first opportunity to be athletic director. I was very, very young. She did get a lot of pushback bringing me in, female, young, as an athletic director in, an inner city school. But, she took a chance on me, and I just thank her for believing in me for that. So, and she also guided me through some of the things that I had to do. Deborah Davis, she's well known in Dade County. And she's always been somebody that was there for me whenever I had any questions. Yvette McKinney, I'm not sure if you remember Yvette McKinney. She was somebody that was my mentor. She was my actual mentor. Somebody that I can call when I had any questions about the AD job, coming up. And there's a lot of people that I was able to reach out to. Some of my administrators as well. You have Mr. Aristide, Mr. Kevin Lawrence, Mr. Frazier. I mean, it's just a lot of people that really was inspirational in my life, that had something to do with things that I'm doing now. So.
No, you're absolutely right. And I always love to hear these stories because it's a great reminder for all of us that we didn't get here by ourselves. We had people that were, pushing us and patting us on the back or kicking us in the butt, whatever we needed at that time. Okay? Let's go and talk about Booker T. Washington. One of the things we like to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. And so, you've been at the school for quite a while and again, have had great success. What are a couple of programs or initiatives that you have with your department that you're particularly proud of? And when you look at them, with a humble eye, you can say, boy, we do this better than anybody. What are a couple of best practices?
I would say how we promote the success of our athletes, around the school. We try to acknowledge athletes in any way possible, in any way, especially academics. Academics is one of my pet peeves. I want to make sure that we are preparing our athletes for the next level, whether they play sports or not. But always keeping in mind that, with sports, comes with discipline, and with our students, it gives them an opportunity to get a way out, so that's one of the best practices. And we don't take anything, you can't take anything personal, when especially when doing this job, you can't take anything personal. You got to be fair. You got to know how to build relationships with other athletic directors, and communication is like major. It's a major thing that you need to have as far as being an AD and best practices as far as running a position and in event management. Event management is very important. I mean, there's so many, you're an athletic director, there's so many aspects of doing this job. It's like, it's just so many aspects of doing a job. I don't know what else to say, but I'm a little nervous though, but I'm good.
No, no, you're doing great. Okay. Let's go and talk about COVID. For our listeners, we're recording this on April 12th, so you're going to hear it pretty timely. In Florida, we've had, I would say, a semi-normal year compared to many states, but in different parts of the state, particularly South Florida, where Lisa's from, there was a different response. So Lisa, just real quick, how did you guys have to deal with the challenges of COVID, and how are you dealing with it now as we are getting ready to kind of wrap up spring sports?
Well, no, as far as Booker T is concerned, and other schools too as well, we had some issues with facilities, because we don't have our own, football fields on our campuses. So we had to literally use 1, 2, 3. We were only able to use 3 football facilities. So we had to kind of crunch a lot of our games in Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday, so that we're able to get, that playing time that we needed. We couldn't have any fans, no fans in the facility, but we were able to eventually get fans in the football stadium, I guess because it was outside, but we were only limited so many per student. At the school location, we're not allowed to have any fans, no fans. However, they are, I love what the district is doing, because now, if we put our own plan together as it pertains to the COVID, making sure we have all our guidelines in place, you're able to have fans, but at limited, is limited, but you have to have the guidelines in order to be allowed to have the fans. But as of right now, we don't have any fans. There is a thing that we have as far as, I know everybody probably heard about the contact tracing. So, if there's any one case anywhere, it doesn't matter. You have to contact trace, and then those students everybody have to be quarantined when it comes down to that. My apologies. Everybody has to be quarantined when it comes down to I'm sorry to that. I'm sorry, I apologize. My phone is ringing.
Hey, you're an athletic director. Your phone's gonna ring.
I'm sorry. It's students have to have, I'm sorry, I'm on a podcast right now. Students our students were not allowed to, our students had to bring their own water bottles, at that time. We're not, I think still to this day, we can have the water coolers, but we can't provide water bottles to our students. So our students, we've had companies that have donated water bottles. So we were able to give our athletes individual water bottles so that they'll have their own. It's just so many guidelines to this COVID thing. Just it's disappointing because, a lot of things had to change. Some things that we used to do, we can't do anymore. As far as practices are concerned, kids do have to have their mask on. So walking around the building, we have to have our mask on. So, the COVID has really made you rethink how you used to do things and then how you're doing things now. So,
how did the Booker T. Washington community, respond to, the new normal? Were the parents, supportive? Was there some resistance to the no fans? How did that play out?
We didn't have any issues that I know of. I'm sorry, I'm on a podcast right now. We didn't have any. I can't, speak about anyone else, but I know, we didn't have any issues. Our alumni was very understanding. Our students were very understanding. Everyone knew what was happening. So we didn't have any issues with anybody being, upset about it, because they were disappointed. Yes. Students were disappointed, but they all ultimately they understood that this was something that we had no control over.
Right.
And they understood it's for the safety of their child and coaches and other people. So, but yeah, that was, I'm sorry, this phone kind of threw me off on my question, my answer.
No worries. Now that, we're deep into spring sports here, have there been any adjustments? Are you allowing, any fans to come into your spring sport events?
No, still as of right now, no. We're getting ready to go into the GMAC. And so that's still, no fans. Track, it depends. Like, I think some private schools are allowed, they're doing it, but public schools, we're not allowed to do it. So, that's just a big thing right now. We're just not allowed to have the fans. But there are a lot of, with track season around, here now. If you have fans, I think that there's we don't have a facility. Our track just got redone. So I know we did have a track meet, we couldn't have fans. But yeah, no, I think going into regionals, we're going away. So I'm sure that there'll be fans there. Yeah, like I said, some private schools are allowed to do it. They can do it because I guess they're private, but as far as public schools, we can't have the fans.
Right. No, and that's understandable. A lot of moving pieces to that Greater Miami Athletic League.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa, we've been doing these interviews now for just a little less than a year. And when we started them, one of the questions that I've been asking the athletic directors across the country revolves around this idea of social awareness, social justice, if you will. And my question is this: what are some things that we can do as athletic directors? What are some things that we can do better for our kids, our community, our coaches? What are your thoughts on that?
As far as like,
just being socially aware of, all the issues that are out there that our kids, our coaches, our parents are having to deal with.
I think we just have to be open to making sure our athletes know what's going on, especially when it pertains to particular situations. But as a parent, I would definitely want to speak with my child first before anyone else, because my concept might be a little different from somebody else, and I think meeting more with parents well, if we are having more Zooms now, it's because everything is on Zoom now. Everything's on Zoom. Maybe meeting more with parents and the child and just giving them the understanding as to what we have to go through here socially and things that we have to deal with, and letting them know that, look, listen, this is what your child gonna have to deal with too, so that you're aware of it, and we don't have any issues later on if something comes up. At least we explained it to you. Look, this is what we told you. This is the situation that's happening now. I mean, it could be any. I hate what's happening in this world country, but you know, I mean, it is what it is. But we have to know how to handle situations as they come.
Well, I know it's not an easy answer, but I appreciate you
Yeah,
sharing your thoughts.
I don't even know if I answered the question, but
no. Let's make it a little easier. What's your favorite part about being the athletic director at Booker T. Washington? What gets you excited about coming to school each day?
just what I have to look forward for each day. The challenge of the job, like you said, my phone keeps going off. You know what I really enjoy? I really like it when I see the students start off in 9th grade, and then the sports that they play going on, and they transitioning each year. They're getting older, they're getting wiser, and then their 12th grade year, they're getting ready to go to college, and they realize, you know, for me, I'm always teary-eyed when I see my athletes. I'm like, God, you know, it's like time flies, you know. And I think the enjoyment of seeing them go off to college, being successful, coming back, like just recently we had one of our kids, right before the podcast, he was standing right in my face. He ran in the Olympics. So I'm like, I was so excited to see him, but I really couldn't, you know. And I just to see them come back and you know, and want to coach, want to be a coach, want to do things within the school, want to volunteer. I think that is so awesome. And then they're doing well in college. Some of them go off to school and they get married, have kids. Oh, it's just I love that. I love to see the transition, the levels of maturity with our students. I love that.
Oh, and you hit it right on the head. I think there's no other, career that you get a chance to watch that journey. You talked about coming in as a 9th grader, and then, 4 years later, you're looking at this kid and you're going, you're a varsity athlete. Oh my goodness. And then 5 years later, they come back, hey coach, remember me? And well, sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, but absolutely. You're right. It's that whole journey that is just so incredible. No other job gets to do what we do.
Yes.
Well, Lisa, this has been great catching up with you. I know I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks at our state conference, but we're not done yet.
Okay.
We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. And we've already established that you're a experienced AD, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Dr. Lisa Stark's athletic director toolbox?
Okay. As a new athletic director, and I would tell them to have a vision as to where the direction you want your program to go into. Know what type of coaches you want to hire. It's all about the type of coach you hire that makes that team successful. So not everybody can be a coach. Everybody wants to be a coach, but not everybody can be a coach. So you have, as an athletic director, you got to be able to, maybe find a teacher or look at how you see how kids flock to a person. So have a vision as to how, you want your program to go. Be a good communicator. It's very important that you communicate with your coaches and your parents and your athletes. Let them know everything when it pertains to the academics, whether they can play, whether they cannot play, because you have some students that may think that they can play and not playing that way. I mean, academically, if they're ineligible then, you know, you have to be firm and say, no, you can't play, you can't practice. That will only give them the motivation to do what they have to do in the classroom in order to play. So you have to be a good communicator, got to be able to communicate with your parents and your coaches, definitely with your coaches. You have to be consistent. Be consistent in any decisions that you make. Okay, and stand by your decision. Don't, if you make a decision and it wasn't the right decision, at least you can say, you know, I made a decision, I made a mistake, so let me make an adjustment the next time. But don't be afraid to make a decision. Don't be, and always be consistent in what you do. Don't sway sides. You have to stay, you know, straight. You can't be on one sport and not against another. You have to be fair with all sports, regardless of one is going to state every year and one is not. You still have to be fair. You have to be fair. That's it.
Great stuff. Vision, communication, and being consistent.
Yeah.
I would take that in any athletic director's toolbox. Dr. Lisa Starks, thank you so much. If one of our listeners wants to reach out to you and pick your brain a little bit, and I certainly encourage you to do so, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
They can reach me at L Starks, that's LSTARKS at dadeschools.net.
Okay.
Or they can call me at 305-324-8900 extension 2216.
Okay. Dr. Lisa Starks, Booker T. Washington, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm not nervous anymore, so that's good.
To our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are also being uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Thanks for listening today. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast.